Dartmouth in Hanover, New Hampshire, talking with the 8 Republican candidates about a variety of issues. Clearly, we come back to health care. I want to go to Governor Perry. Explain to me what you think the difference is about your health care ideas and Governor Romney's health care ideas, and how you see mandates and how he sees mandates and the Constitution, because not only has there been some exchange here, Governor Christie got involved today.
Well, certainly the issue of health care is probably one of the biggest one that's facing us. I mean, there are a lot of Americans sitting out there today, and getting those people back to work is the most important thing that we do as a country, so that they can have the opportunity to purchase health care. And I think that is probably the biggest issue that are facing Americans. There are people sitting out there around the kitchen table watching TV tonight who are looking for someone to lay out an idea that truly will get this country back working again. And that's why I lay out, without having any congressional impact at all, how to get our energy industry back to work and back to work very quickly. But in the state of Texas, from the standpoint of what we've done to make access of health care better, we passed the most sweeping tort reform in the nation in 2003. We also passed Healthy Texas, which expands the private sector insurance, and we've driven down the cost of insurance by 30%. So those are some of the ways that the states, but the real issue for us is Medicaid and how to get the flexibility on Medicaid so that the innovators can occur in the states. I can promise you, whether it's Governor Jindal or myself or Susana Martinez over in New Mexico, that's where you'll find the real innovation in health care. The way to deliver health care more efficiently, more effectively, is to block grant those dollars back to the state and keep this federal government that has this one-size-fits-all mentality from driving the thought process that we've seen that's destroyed health care in this country today.
But Governor Perry, as the Washington Post fact checker noted, Texas has had 16 waivers for Medicaid. So how can you say that the problem is that the federal government has not given Texas enough flexibility?
They haven't anywhere near given the states. I think what you should see is the block granting, not having to go to Washington, D.C. and ask them, Mother may I, every time you come up with a concept or an idea. Block granting back to the states. I'll guarantee you the governors and their innovators in their states will come up with ways to better deliver health care more efficiently, more effectively, more cost efficiently, and that's what this country is looking for, is a president who understands that we have these 50 laboratories of innovation. Free up these states from Washington, D.C.'s one-size-fits-all.
Juliana.
Thank you, Charlie. Mr. Kaine, you disapprove of Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke, and we all know that your priority is 999. But one of the most important appointments that you're going to have to make your first year, should you be president, would be Fed Chairman. So which Federal Reserve Chairman over the last 40 years do you think has been most successful and might serve as a model for that appointment?
Alan Greenspan.
Why?
Because that's when I served on the board of the Federal Reserve in the early 1990s. And the way Alan Greenspan oversaw the Fed and the way he coordinated with all of the Federal Reserve banks, I think that it worked fine back in the early 1990s. Now, on that same point, I have already identified 2 candidates, which I cannot give their names, to replace Mr. Bernanke in anticipation of having that responsibility. We must narrow the mission of the Fed first. I don't believe in ending the Fed. I believe we can fix the Fed by getting their mission refocused on monetary price stability, and I have candidates in mind that will help us do that.
So you have 2 appointments waiting in the wings for 2013, for that when his term is up 2014.
Yes, I have 2 candidates waiting in the wings.
How about a hint?
To take that job. I got to keep them confidential.
Okay, Congressman Paul.
Spoken like a true insider. No, Alan Greenspan was a disaster. Everybody somebody in Washington, liberals and conservatives, said he kept interest rates too low too long. Of course, the solution was lower them even more, and they think that's going to solve our problem. But if I had to name one person that did a little bit of good, and that was Paul Volcker. He at least knew how to end or help, end the inflation. But of course, with my position that I don't think highly of the Federal Reserve, and I think we should have sound money, and we shouldn't have somebody deciding what the interest rate should be and how much money supply we should have. I mean, nobody satisfies me. But certainly Alan Greenspan has ushered in the biggest bubble. And what did we do? We've continued the same thing, doing the same thing. We think the inflation under Alan Greenspan was bad, so we're trying to solve the problem by inflating even further. So Bernanke compounds the problem. He's inflating twice as fast as Greenspan was. But Greenspan caused so much trouble, and he used to believe in the gold standard. I think he's coming around to that. And before he retires, he'll write his biography and explain why he's coming back to the gold standard.
I want to go from a gold standard to a small business person who is from New Hampshire, who's in the audience with us and has a question about small business, of which she has founded one. Margot Thompson.
Businesses like mine have great difficulty obtaining credit. What specifically would you do to make bank lending more accessible to small businesses?
If you would direct it to...
I was told to direct it to you.
So Governor Romney? Yes.
Right. Give her the answer, Charles.
I ask questions, not answer them, Governor. Okay. I forgot to explain that.
What's happened in this country under the Obama administration is that you have a president who I think is well-meaning, but just over his head when it comes to the economy. And the absolute wrong time to have the absolute wrong people put together a financial regulatory bill was right now, and Barney Frank and Chris Dodd. They were the wrong guys at the wrong time, because what they did with this new bill is usher in what will be hundreds and thousands of pages of new regulations. The big banks, the big money center banks in Wall Street, they can deal with that. I spoke with one banker there that said they have hundreds of lawyers working on that legislation and trying to implement it. For community banks that provide loans to businesses like yours, they can't possibly deal with a regulatory burden like that. Then you have inspectors coming in and writing down their assets and saying they're not worth as much as the bank thought they were worth, and therefore the banks are unable to lend. Small community banks across this country are starving and struggling because of inspectors that are making their job impossible, and because of regulation that's fine for the big banks because they can deal with it. It's a killer for the small banks, and those small banks loaning to small businesses and entrepreneurs are what have typically gotten our economy out of recession. What the president has done on almost every dimension is exactly the wrong thing to get this economy going again.
Congresswoman Bachmann.
I'd like to add to that, because the Dodd-Frank bill is the Jobs and Housing Destruction Act. And I have spoken to Iowa bankers, and they told me that they are going to see the collapse of community banks, just like Mitt said, all across the state. I talked to a banker in Texas who owns multiple branch banks. He said he's going to lose $20 million on his bottom line this year because of all of the compliance. So government is putting a huge layer of regulation on banks. We will see literally thousands of banks close their door. That will be hard for small business owners like you and like me. And so that's going to hurt real people, and it will lead to job destruction. That's why I introduced the bill to repeal Dodd-Frank, because it'll hurt credit, not add to credit. And by the way, that's why we see the new $5 debit card fee that people are paying every month that they're upset about because of Dodd-Frank. And that was insider dealing, because Senator Durbin had former staffers that came to lobby him on behalf of retailers. This is dirty dealing. As President of the United States, I would end all of these payoffs to political donors by our legislators. That's wrong. That's got to end.
Here and then go over here. First and then there.
In addition to what Governor Romney said, I agree, repeal Dodd-Frank, but also get rid of the capital gains tax. That's a big wall between people with ideas and people with money. And we know which plan gets rid of the capital gains tax.
No.
I just want to add one quick thing. Dodd-Frank, obviously, is a disaster. It's estimated it's going to cost $1 trillion. I think one of the reasons we're not getting anywhere, and we're not getting anywhere in Washington, it's a partisan fight. It's a fight over power, because Sarbanes-Oxley, which was done by the Republicans, it cost $1 trillion too. It's repealed that too. I mean, if you look at what we've done as Republicans, we have caused a lot of problems. To say this all in these past 2 years, I mean, I think that is so misleading. That's why the American people are sick and tired of listening to the politicians.
All right, I want to bring my colleagues in.
Right.
Karen.
Governor Perry, taxpayers stand to lose $500 million in the collapse of Solyndra, which is a solar energy firm that was a centerpiece of the Obama Green Jobs Initiative. Do you think there were inadequate safeguards there, or do you think this is just the risk we run when the government gets involved in subsidizing new industries and technologies?
Well, I don't think the federal government should be involved in that type of investment, period. If states want to choose to do that, I think that's fine for states to do that.
And you have in Texas done that with the Emerging Technology Fund, but your own state auditor said earlier this year that that fund is neither accountable nor transparent. The Dallas Morning News reported that that fund gave $16 million to companies that are connected to your campaign contributors. And like Solyndra, some of the Emerging Technology Fund's investments have gone bust. So how is this different in principle from the Obama administration's efforts to pick winners in the future economy?
Well, first off, the Texas legislature has full oversight of that committee. It's approved it for, I think, since 2003. So every 2 years, the Texas legislature looks at it. It's had full oversight. And I can promise you the 54,600 jobs that have been created and then $14+ billion worth of investment that has come out of the enterprise fund in the state of Texas. Those people that have jobs today in the state of Texas, they are absolutely happy that we've got a program like that. And 75% of those emerging technology fund dollars are my appointees never made a contribution to me, period.
But you talk about oversight. The fact is that in some instances, your appointees have overruled the regional boards that have tried to turn back some of these deals.
Every one of those projects had the lieutenant governor, the speaker, and the governor's office. So there's extraordinary amount of oversight in those programs, and we're proud of them. I mean, we feel like that those are part of the reason that Texas has led the nation in the creation of jobs. While this country was losing 2.5 million jobs, Texas was creating 1 million jobs. That's the kind of leadership that America's longing for, someone that actually understands that you have to be able to give a climate where people know they can risk their capital and have a chance to have a return on that investment.
We have one more video I want to show. Here it is.
The more people who own their home, the better off America is. And we're making good progress. Our nation's 68% home ownership rate is the highest ever. More people own homes now than ever before in the country's history, and that's exciting for the future of America.
Speaker Gingrich, has the American dream of owning a home no longer a realistic dream? And is it too easy in America?